Welcome to Game Time Tech Podcast. I'm Melody Brew from More Insights and Strategy. I am here with my co-host and partner in our sports technology vertical, Robert Kramer. We are so excited to have Simon Taylor, founder and CEO of HYCU. How you doing, Simon?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be here. Good to see you both.
Great to have you. So today we're going to be talking about from digital ticketing to player stats. Technology is really transforming every aspect of sports. HYCU works with teams like Boston Red Sox and the Celtics to protect critical data and ensure seamless fan experience, smooth operation, both on and off the field. That's a lot.
We try. We do our best.
That's a tall task. But before we get into the sports side of things, why don't you just give us kind of, for anybody who's not familiar, just give us kind of a top line view of what HYCU does.
Yeah, sure. So HYCU stands for Hybrid Cloud Uptime. And really what we are is the world's fastest growing data protection as a service company. So if you think about cybersecurity in general, there's prevention of a ransomware attack, there is detection, but there's also recovery and remediation. And that's really where HYCU comes in. We support over 4,000 customers, including nation states, federal governments, Fortune 500 companies, and of course, sports teams, providing backup and recovery across hundreds of different data sources, including on-premises, public cloud, and SaaS services. We've got, I think offices in about 12 countries now. And it's been just a great privilege to be able to build a business which is really providing what we consider to be a public service, making sure that people's data is protected and companies are up and running each and every day.
Wow. That's so, I think this is, in general, kind of what we like to talk about in Game Time Tech is sort of how people are showcasing what they do as a business through sports. So let's kind of use sports apps as an example of what you do across the board throughout different verticals. But I think there's a little bit something special about sports apps in that they're very niche because they're made for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that? I'm sure there's other things other than sports that kind of have that same, I don't know, description, but like what about sports does it creates that kind of like ripe for attack scenario?
Think about it like this. I'm a big F1 fan, and somebody told me recently that the market cap for Ferrari, which produces like 7,000 cars a year, is now twice what Ford's is, right? Producing, millions and millions of cars a year.
Wow.
What makes Ferrari so special? It's not just the revenue, obviously, it's that brand. It's the strength of the brand that's driven by things like F1, et cetera. And I think that applies to professional sports teams en masse. You've got this incredible, incredible brand that's driving billions of dollars in ticket sales and sponsorships and sort of this whole ecosystem around it. But in reality, the actual team itself is maybe 1,000 people, employees, players, et cetera. Well, when you've got that much money, right, supporting a very, very niche but incredibly powerful and revenue generating organization, you're going to have some great technology that comes to bear to help digitize it, improve it, and make it better. What this results in is companies doing their utmost to put together very, very niche, highly specialized applications to do everything from, ensuring that training goes right to protecting a professional athlete's health. I even read something recently about artificial intelligence helping to predict whether or not a player was seriously injured before a medic even gets out there on the field.
Wow.
So I think that level of specialization focused on really such a finite audience and a finite group of players who are actually need to get better at their craft really does create a really sort of a perfect storm in terms of high-powered, high-octane, specialized applications that can really only be used for one very, very specialized purpose.
So first of all,
got my whoop is because they realized that, I don't remember which player it was, but one of the PGA Tour players, they realized that he had COVID because of his whoop.
It's a great example. And, we're right out of Boston, Massachusetts, where we are. So we love those guys.
Yes.
So it's nice to see you again, Simon, and congratulations for the Boston Celtics. That was a heck of a series, and
Oh,
great to see them back on the
we're
map as
thrilled.
champions.
My
So
son hasn't shut up about it ever since. He's still jumping up and down. It's been an exciting time here in Boston.
absolutely. So you support them, but a lot of these franchises, they have a lot of applications, and the database sprawl is a problem for these companies because they have so many.
Yeah.
And so, what's the challenge there with these companies, with all sporting franchises, to protect from a data perspective and what you do?
Somebody much smarter than me said the other day that technology in basketball reminds them very much of what Brad Stevens did with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right? So
Mhm.
you've got this sort of power duo. He puts them together. They're young athletes. They're a little bit unproven at some point, but he really believes in them and ultimately goes on to win the championship. And I think the corollary to technology in sports is that today, if you go out and you choose just one major provider of legacy technology, it's not going to support everything you need to do in your franchise.
Yep.
So what people are doing, as I said before, is they're adding hundreds and hundreds of SaaS applications, right? These are, for those of us who are not techies, SaaS, software as a service, think about an app on your iPhone, right? They're not going and downloading something and putting it in their basement and then looking on their computer to see how good somebody's pitching, throwing a pitch. Instead they're downloading a niche application and they're using that to sort of run those performance and analytics. I'll give you a real life example here in terms of what we call data silo sprawl in professional sports. And I can say this because it's actually in my book, Averting the SaaS Data Apocalypse, so it's public.
Mhm.
The Boston Red Sox have been a phenomenal customer of HYCU for a number of years. And we back up and recover all of their data across hundreds of applications. Well, when they first turned on HYCU, Randy George, the VP of IT over there, he said to me over dinner, he said, well, I think we've got about this many, applications. And when he actually ran our visualization software, which discovers your environment and tells you how many apps you're running, he found over 900 applications just for the Boston Red Sox alone.
Wow.
So you think about that is 900 points of entry for an attacker. That is 900 points of vulnerability that had to be protected. Now, I can honestly say the Red Sox have done a phenomenal job digging and protecting their entire environment with HYCU as a partner. But I think what we're seeing there is that the old days of all my data is in the basement, I can just go and protect it. I know where it is. Something's gone wrong. I'm going to send Jimmy down and he's going to fix it with a spanner. Those days are over, right? Today, to regain control of our entire environment, we need to take a partnering approach. And the way we do that is we go out and we choose a number of different partners, key vendors. And what the franchises have to do is bring those vendors inside. They really need to make them sort of a part of the family and leverage the new nimble technology that they provide as a service to combat the scourge of ransomware, reduce a lot of the inefficiencies that are created by using so many different applications, and ultimately keep the players and the fans protected.
That's great. Well, it's unbelievable how much technology these companies or organizations have because, years ago they ran it manual with barely any technology. And all of a sudden now they have, like you said, 200 to 300 applications in this massive technology stack to actually take care of. And companies like yourselves are completely needed to secure that. So, so what are some examples of how digital technology is utilized in baseball, like beyond ticketing? So we're kind of skipping around here a little bit, but
Yeah.
because I think ticketing is a big component of this digital technology, but how is it utilized beyond that? And how is ticketing even, maybe explain how that's even done, because maybe the people looking
Yeah.
into this, viewing this might not understand how extensive it is.
So I think the first thing to keep in mind when we're thinking about professional sports today is that data is being used in almost every aspect of a player's day and in the life and the journey of the team. So when we think about player safety, right, we talked before about how you can now use AI to, through video, spot what's happening on the field and get out there with the right equipment to help a player.
Right.
We talk about cybersecurity. We're looking at how do we protect all of the data and make sure that the sort of outsized brand that these teams have doesn't attract the bad guys and create sort of, real cyber resiliency problems for them. We talk about, things like managing the health of a player off the field, even sadly, the things like drug testing, things like, player maintenance. These are incredibly, incredibly private areas of data that every single sports team is collecting. And that data has to be protected for the player's safety. And then we talk about performance and analytics. I think we all saw Moneyball, back in the day. I actually rewatched it recently. And it's funny because at the time it was so revolutionary. You sort of thought, wow, my gosh, you're not just going to send scouts out to pick players. You're going to do it based on numbers. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you ask pretty much anybody today, with all the fantasy leagues that are out there and the betting that's out there, it is all quantitative. It is
Yep.
a quant person's dream today, almost across every major league sport. And so I think we've seen a massive shift in the way that data is being understood and interpreted, but also in the way that it's being valued by the different franchises. And I think that's going to continue. And that's going to result in more applications, more databases. It's going to result in a bigger volume of data and more complexity. And that's why I really, really, I think incredibly highly of professional sports IT teams.
Yeah.
I really think they are the unsung heroes in a lot of these teams. And I'm not just saying that because they're great customers of ours. We've got lots of customers and lots of verticals, but they are required to do so much, with relatively little, versus large Fortune 500 companies. And they're somehow able to do it, and they do it like magic. And I think that's in some ways the beauty of technology and sort of a testament to the way that these teams and these franchises are being managed, because they're bringing great talent to be able to support, ultimately the players and the fans.
So you
That's
talk
great.
about like the performance analytics, and so much of that is what drives the fan experience.
Mm-hmm.
We had IBM at the Masters as a guest on this very show.
It's great.
And the IBM Masters app is like one of the best apps in sports because of those analytics that they have. What's the next hole? What the likelihood of a birdie, that type of thing. That's the thing that really drives the fan experience. So what is it that like HYCU does in terms of the fan experience? Also, like, what do you get out of it, in terms of like reaching your customers?
Yeah.
Like outside of the what you do to protect the data,
Sure.
Let's talk about the outward facing,
Yeah. So we talk about de-risking innovation a lot at HYCU, and that sounds like a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but really what it means is, as I said before, when these relatively small, powerful IT teams are looking at how to improve the experience for a fan, whether it is automating a ticketing system, whether it is putting in, augmented reality camera technology so you can use an Apple Vision Pro when you're, watching a game. All of these different things create exponential levels of risk for not only the teams and the franchise, but also for the players. Because guess what you've now got on your phone? You've got the Major League Baseball app, you've got this app, you've got that app. So really the extent to which the technology that is deployed by these teams impacts a wide swath of consumers is almost second to none. And I think what we do is we're really able to help these teams to assess, the extent to which they are adding risk. And then we help them de-risk it by creating a program for them automatically that will ensure that there is limited cyber risk and they're more resilient, as an organization. I think the second thing that I would say there is that, in terms of what we get out of it on a personal level on an organizational level, we are also a sponsor of the Boston Red Sox. We are thrilled to be. I grew up here in Boston, Massachusetts, as did many of the folks in our headquarters. And, I'll tell you, when it's not every day that when you run an infrastructure related company like HYCU, a back end related company, that you get to see the fruits of the labor. So, predominantly, and visually. And I'll just say, I've got an 11-year-old son, and, we went to see a Sox game recently. And one of my sort of proudest moments as a dad was just looking up at the HYCU sign and having him sort of point
Oh,
at it
it's amazing.
and tell us, share it with his friends. So
So
I think, there is something very, this is an art as much as a science, as we talked about before. And I think there's
mhm.
some really powerful emotion that comes along with it.
Yeah. So when you take, can you take customers, and is it something that is part of kind of your sales motion to be able to, and not in I would say let's look back 5 years, taking a potential customer to a game was more of like a boondoggle. Now you can actually say here's our solution in action, right? I mean, there's a change in that.
There is. And again, I think it comes back to that's a great tie-in actually, Mel, around, a lot of the different topics we talked about today. This sort of the rise in complexity that these teams are going through from a technology perspective, the rise in AI and all the advantages that brings, the advancements that tech brings to the customer and ultimately the fan. And it's all falling on the shoulders of this relatively small team of IT superheroes. And so when you can showcase that, even to a Fortune 500 CIO or CISO, what he's able to see is, wow, this organization that is roughly 1,000 times smaller than me, right, is actually doing some really wildly sophisticated things to protect their data. I better get on board. And I'll tell you, we actually ran our first customer advisory board meeting right at Fenway Park, and we had the IT department from the Sox come down, and Randy George gave a phenomenal talk to all of our customers, this group of customers, and I, without naming names, some of the largest companies in the world, the CIOs came up afterwards and just said that was so powerful, and you think to yourself, these folks could be anywhere right now. They flew to Boston, they spent this time. But they're in Fenway Park. They know what this means, right? And they're hearing directly from the IT folks at the park and for the team about the challenges they're going through and recognizing how HYCU can help. So again, there's some real power there. I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I think it's super interesting how the IT companies, how we're doing it today, where it's not just an impression, where you're getting something out of it. The sporting brand, like Boston Red Sox or the Boston Celtics are, but also the fans. So I think it's just a really different storytelling that we're getting out of it today. It's very complex. But how do the sports partnerships expose HYCU to customers or to new customers?
Yeah.
And what are the benefits associated with that?
Two-part answer I'll give. The first is, going back to the sort of the Moneyball discussion, right? When that came out, you think about what a fan's expectation was of a game. And I think this is true. This is true in F1. It's true in NASCAR. It's true all over the place. But, it used to be, maybe we use NASCAR just for fun for a moment to move off baseball. It used to be cars going around a track. And then it was video of somebody in the car, right? Mm-hmm. And, today you feel like you're playing a video game, watching some of the UIs that are created to sort of make sure you're really having that experience.
That's neat. Yep.
And so as fan expectations go up, the technical expectations go up. And so I think this cycle is just continuing and continuing, and it's not going to stop. And so I think, for us, I think as people have started to realize the incredibly almost unrealistic expectations fans have today, and the fact that these teams of IT superheroes, as I call them, can come in and make it a reality. I think it then creates, a much more relevant sort of case study for a company like HYCU and for any company. And I think, a big part of understanding that ecosystem, has come through our partners in our channel. I think part of it has been, obviously working with the teams themselves, but a lot of these teams are turning to, very specialized partners who really understand that specific kind of sport. And they become almost expert in it. And you just learn a ton about sort of how that world is evolving by spending time with those sorts of folks.
Do you get to give them any advice on like what players to draft or like who to start?
Not. I tend to keep mostly relegated to the technical side of things, but I will say it's a lot of fun, and you do feel like you're a part of something really important
Yeah.
And there are moments. We do a lot of work in the federal government as well, and you feel the same way there in a very different way, obviously.
Sure.
But it's all a part of sort of building a better civilization for us humans and making us successful.
That's great. Well, I think this was a fantastic episode of Game Time Tech. Do you have any other questions or anything that you'd like to kind of get out in the open before we conclude?
No, I would just say, for anybody who is in sports IT listening, it's getting really complex, and we hear you. And unfortunately, some of the really, really big legacy names in technology who can be phenomenal and can be super helpful for some things just aren't going to be able to do it all. My advice is just, do it like the Red Sox. Build your family, build your little community of great vendors who you can really trust and you can work with to work on these really, really specific use cases that are incredibly important to you, the teams, the owners, but also to the fans themselves.
That's great. Well, Simon Taylor from HYCU, Robert Kramer and Melanie Brew from More Insights and Strategy, thank you for joining us today, and we'll look forward to see you on the next episode of Game Time Tech. Thank you.